It's music theory. Online, let's learn some theory. Online, by watching modules. Online, with music theory. Online.
Hi everyone. Here we are in Module 12 of the Junior Theory course. Today we'll be learning about transposition. Transposition means that we take a piece of music and play or write it on different keys. When you transpose, the relationship between the notes must remain the same. What that means is that we can only transpose from a major key to a major key or from a minor key to a minor key. When you transpose, it's important that you know what the original key is. You'll find the key by looking at the key signature, and you'll have to look at the starting and the ending note as well. Remember that if it's in the relative minor key, you may have a raised seventh or even a raised sixth note if there's a minor melodic passage. The raised seventh is not a guarantee, though. Sometimes it isn't raised, and sometimes there's no seventh at all. In order to find the given key, check the key signature first if it's written at the beginning. Then check to see if the melody begins or ends on the tonic note. Sometimes the melody may begin or end on a note of the tonic triad, so be careful. Always double check the relative minor if you have doubts about whether it's in a major key. Let's look at this example. The key signature has two flats, which is the key signature for B flat major and for G minor. This passage begins and ends on G, though, which is not part of the B flat major triad. B flat major's relative is G minor, and look what this example begins and ends on, G. We also have an F sharp, which is the raised leading note. That means this example is in the key of G minor. It's a little more difficult if the key signature is not given. Then we need to gather the sharps or the flats together and see what key signature they make. When you gather the accidentals together, sometimes a sharp or a flat that should be in the key signature is missing. That sometimes happens simply because that note is not in the music. You can assume, though, that if it was in the music, it would be sharp or flat. Let's gather the flats in this first example. We have a B flat and an E flat, which is the key signature for B flat major. This example begins and ends on B flat, so it's pretty safe to say that this is definitely in B flat major. Now we'll move on to the next example. Now we have B flat, an A flat, and there's no E flat. When you examine the entire line, there is no E. We can assume that if there was an E, it would be flat. The B, E, and A flat would suggest the key of E flat major. When you look at the last note G, we could build a one chord on that note. And the first note G is also part of the E flat major triad, which is the one chord in E flat major. I think we can safely say that this second example is in E flat major. Here we have some more passages to solve. This first example also may have some sharps or flats missing. Let's begin by gathering them up. This one is interesting because we have naturals and flats. We have B flats, E flats, and A flats, which would be the key signature for E flat major. The relative minor is C minor. When you raise the sixth and the seventh note in C minor, you would have A natural and B natural. When you analyze this carefully, I'm sure you'll agree with me that this is in C minor. Sometimes you'll find there are extra accidentals in the passage. That's okay. If they don't fit into the key signature and they don't belong to the minor key, they may just be accidentals. This next passage has a B flat and an A flat. So the E flat is missing. or is it? There are E's that aren't flat, and if this was in E flat major, they would definitely be flat. That means we can assume that the A flat is an accidental, and that this is written in the key of F major. This passage also ends with the tonic, so that supports the decision that this is in F major. Why don't you pause this module to find the key of the first line? The first step is to gather the accidentals and group them into a key signature. After you do that, you would have E flat, A flat, D flat, and G flat. There's no B flat. Let's see if there is a B flat in that first line. There isn't, so we can assume that if there was a B flat, it would be flat. The key that has B, E, A, and D flat, as well as G flat, would be D flat major. The relative minor would be B flat minor. If it was in B flat minor, we would have a raised leading note, which would mean the A's would be natural instead of flat. Because they're flat, we can assume that this is in the key of D flat major. To double check, if it was in D flat major, it would probably begin and end on D flat or a note of the D flat major chord. And it does. This example is definitely in the key of D flat major. Let's look at the middle example. When you gather up all the sharps, there's F sharp, C sharp, G sharp, D sharp, and a lonely B sharp. That lonely B sharp could be an unrelated accidental, or it could be a raised leading note. We still need to find the key signature for this passage, so if you ignore the B sharp, then the key signature would work for E major, which has F sharp, C sharp, G sharp, and D sharp. The relative minor for E major is C sharp minor. In C sharp minor, the raised leading note would be B sharp, which we have in the first measure. Remember I said in an earlier module that the seventh note isn't always raised? In this passage, we do have a seventh that isn't raised. Don't let that confuse you. This begins and ends on notes of the tonic triad in C sharp minor. This example is definitely in the key of C sharp minor. Now we'll look at the last example. When you gather up the flats, you have B flat, A flat, and G flat. There's also some A naturals. This passage may take some serious investigating. Notice there is no D or E in this passage. We could assume then that if there was an E or a D, they would be flat. In that case, we would have B, E, A, D, and G flat, which is the key signature for D flat major. The relative minor is B flat minor. B flat minor would have A naturals, which this passage has. This passage ends with a note of the tonic triad and is in the key of B flat minor. Why is it important to be able to transpose? Because as an instrumentalist, you may be asked to perform a piece in another key. That could be because you're accompanying an instrument that doesn't play in the same key as your instrument. Or you may be accompanying a singer who can't sing comfortably in the key the song is written in. You can only transpose from a major key to a major key or from a minor key to a minor key. Never from a major key to a minor key, and never from a minor key to a major key. The first step when transposing is to find the given key, then find out how to write it in the new key. Begin with the note heads and make sure to write the note heads directly under the given passage. That will make it so much easier for you to ensure that you have followed the original line correctly. After you have written the note heads, go back and add the stems. Remember to add all the dynamic signs, tempos, articulation markings, really anything that's in the original passage must be written in the new key. If you keep everything nicely lined up, it will help you to keep the same bar line lengths. When possible, play both examples. That's a great way to check that you've transposed every note correctly. Be careful to begin on the right note. If you start on the wrong note, your whole passage will be wrong. Now you'll see why intervals are so important, because often you'll be asked to transpose up or down a specific interval. As you did when working with intervals, always think in keys when determining the starting note. Be careful with accidentals. If there was an accidental in the original passage, there will need to be an accidental in the new one. It may not be the same accidental, though. You'll need to think it through. Did the original accidental raise or lower the note? And then make that same adjustment in the new key. When you transpose up a given interval, first find your new key by treating the tonic of the original key as the bottom note of the interval, and then figure out what the top interval should be. That top interval will be in the new key. In this example, the original key is C major. We're asked to transpose this passage up a perfect fourth. First, write your interval from C to F, and in C major, F is natural, which would make it a perfect fourth. So our new key would be F major. A little more challenging is finding intervals going down. Just remember that you can't change the original note. In the original passage of E flat major, to transpose down a minor second would mean that the new key is D major. D to E flat is a minor second. Again, given the original key of E flat major, to transpose down a diminished eighth would be E major. It's a little tricky. Just remember that you can only adjust the lower note. Remember that you'll be asked to transpose up or transpose down a given interval. If you're asked to find an interval above, you're going to adjust the top note. Above equals top adjustments. If you're asked to find an interval below, adjust the bottom note. Below equals bottom adjustment. Let's practice finding these keys. Each note that is given is the tonic of the key. The first step is to determine the key. This is in the key of G major. A perfect fourth above G major would be C, so the new key would be C major. A perfect fourth below G would be D, so the new key would be D major. The next example is in the key of B flat major. A major second above B flat major would be C, so the answer would be C major. Below B flat would be A flat. The next example is the key of D major. A minor second above D would be E flat, and a minor second below D would be C sharp. The next one is E flat major. A minor third above E flat would be G flat, and a minor third below E flat would be C. Do you see how this works? Why don't you pause this module and solve the second line? Okay, a perfect fifth above A is E, and a perfect fifth below A is D. An augmented fourth above A, flat, is D. A major second above E is F sharp, and a major second below E is D. A minor sixth above B flat is G flat. A minor sixth below B flat is D. Last one is a major sixth above A, which is F sharp, and a major sixth below A would be C. It's crucial that you correctly determine the given key and the tonic in order to correctly name the transposed key. If you're asked to transpose this passage to the new key of blank, begin by writing the key signature of the new key. After you have the key signature, then ensure that you're beginning on the correct note. If the original melody begins on the tonic, then you would begin on the tonic of the new key. If the original melody begins on the dominant, then the transposed melody must also begin on the dominant. If you're asked to transpose this passage up or down a specific interval, then determine what that interval is. If it's above, then you'll be altering the top note. If it's below, alter the bottom note. Make sure you check all accidentals carefully and don't forget to copy all the terms and signs. The more you practice transposing, the easier it will be. If you need help, just let me know. Remember, I'm here to help you every step of the way. I hope to see you at Theory Club this week. Have a super duper week. Bye.
It's music theory. Online, let's learn some theory. Online, by watching modules. Online, with music theory. Online.